So I'm sure we've all seen the news from today already, which is that there is this plan, which seems to be continually being brought up every single day at this point. It's been floated around the media ecosystem for a while. This idea that because the Conservative Party are absolutely tanking in the polls, they're on average more than 20 points behind in the polls every single time that they get polled. And they're all fighting like rats in a sack because they absolutely are terrified of the idea about what's going to happen to them at the general election. Reform creeping up from the right, Labour taking their votes to very, very slightly to their left. And of course, Rishi Sunak is hated by the country. He's not a good political operator, he's not a good politician, he's not charismatic, he's robotic, he's out of touch, he's richer than Croesus, and it makes him look like he is in no way connected to the struggles that people are facing every day. And they want to get somebody who's a better performer in charge, and why not get Penny Mordaunt to stand up and fight for them is their idea. Because the relationship between Sunak and the public is so soured. They've had scandal after scandal. There is this plot internally to replace Sunak with Penny Mordaunt, to then say they have a contract with the people, quote unquote, to then immediately call an election after at least 100 or 100 days maximum. So they would say, we will call an election 100 days. This is the contract with Britain. I mean, it can't get any worse for them. People might laugh at them having a fourth prime minister in a single term, but whatever at this point. Rishi is so hated by the public and continually looking like he's going to get more hated the longer that they wait, because the May election stuff is done now. They're looking into October to try and get it in before the American general election. The longer they wait on him, the more people will see him, the more people will hate him, and the more they drop in the polls. So by replacing him with somebody who's a better performer, someone who's slightly less rich, and who isn't as well known to the public, and who broadly the public like. Actually, Penny Mordaunt is the only Conservative member of the cabinet who has a positive approval rating on YouGov. Everybody else is negative. Everybody else is seen horrendously apart from Penny Mordaunt, even after a funny Conservative Party conference speeches. I think this is their best strategy of not getting wiped out. I think they should make Penny Mordaunt leader and then call the election immediately, rather than let her be sour to the public as well by being Prime Minister whilst things suck. They need a completely clean slate to campaign on, so this is their best way. Objectively, as somebody who wants the Conservative Party to not get many votes, I also think that you have to be real and say, well, I'm thinking from their perspective, if I was going to put myself in a Conservative Party member's shoes, who would be the best to be able to take them into election to try and minimise the damage, theoretically? Mordaunt would be that person. She's on the kind of one nation liberal wing with some right-wing opinions. She, again, is charismatic in a way that Sunak isn't, and better on the dispatch box as well. I mean, yeah, literally going back to square one is exactly what the Tories need to do by wiping the slate clean and not have any leader who has baggage that they would have to be carrying. Because that's the issue, is that everybody is relating the current political climate to whoever is Prime Minister. And as soon as you're Prime Minister for a short period of time, people then connect that to you rather than to the party broadly. So Penny Mordaunt should call it immediately as soon as she becomes Prime Minister. If they were to oust Sunak and replace her, she should run on a ticket herself as a new candidate. This is, of course, a silly idea for them to wait. As I said before, and as Tim Montgomery from Conservative Home said, the public are desperate for election. They're sick of the Conservative Party. They are absolutely sick to the back teeth of seeing the Tories in power. They are desperate for an election. And the longer the Conservatives deny them that election, the more angry the public will get. Now, whilst I do think the Mordaunt is going to be less bad than Sunak, they will still drop in the polls no matter who is leader. The longer they deny the people of this country the right to democratically choose a new government, the worse they are going to do. All of the different indicators for them get worse as well. But the Conservatives don't seem to see this. What's interesting as well is that the Tories are in this genuinely believe that the polling is, whilst bad, it's salvageable. They believe that if they can just turn some things around, then they can wait, find some light at the end of the tunnel, and then not get wiped out of the election, which isn't true. Again, they will have fewer voters left alive come the next election. In summer, the boat crossings will get higher. More people will be on new mortgages, with new rates based upon the increase on the base rate. Things are only getting worse the longer that they wait, but they're hoping for a miracle. What's interesting, though, the reasons why the Tories just haven't got a clue why they're losing, I think, is summed up by this tweet from Christian Calgie. It was mentioned on Novara, and I found it really, really interesting. This is a list of things that he is discussing on why they should wait or why they shouldn't wait to call the election in October. The first positives that he's got going is economy will much likely improve, but how much? Not by very much at all, because the economy will need to improve by having more investment and having higher wages, and those are the only two ways you're actually going to be able to solve this crisis. Prices can't come down, we can't have deflation. If people's wages aren't rising, that's not going to help them be able to afford their cost of living more. And of course, interest rates might come down slightly, but the effect they'll have on the economy will be like years into the future. And again, more people will be on new rates for mortgages, so will be even more likely to hate the Tories for the damage done by Liz Truss when they look at cuts in interest rates and inflation reaching 2%. Remember, inflation reaching 2% means that the prices are rising at a slower rate, but they are still rising. Really important that disinflation is not deflation. Prices are not coming down. They're just going up less fast when inflation goes down. Because the only way that you can actually decrease your cost of living is by having a higher wage in comparison to inflation, which of course the Tories don't want to do because they've spent 14 years kneecapping the ability of workers to bargain for better wages in this country. Their other points they make is that Farage may be too distracted by Trump election to play a proper role. I don't think it matters whether Farage runs or not, to be honest. I mean, if he does run, the Tories are completely toast, but they're looking at being wiped out even without him campaigning. Even Richard Tyson Lee Anderson, who is a figure who is more famous than Richard Tyson polling, who will actually bring more people to reform. Like, this is the real kind of death knell moment for the Tories, that Lee Anderson is out there being a figurehead for Reform UK in Parliament rather than being a meme party. It gives them actual kind of electoral weight. And then on top of that, he says, well, if we get a flight off to Rwanda, maybe that will help them at the election. And what's crazy, I've heard this line from so many conservatives. So many conservatives have said, whether it's Jonathan Gullis, whether it's Suella Braverman, whether it's Robert Jenrick, whether it's Sunak himself, they are all obsessed with this idea that if they get some planes off to Rwanda, that will solve all their electoral woes. It will solve every problem that they have, as long as the flights to Rwanda go off. People are mad about immigration, when every single poll shows that people care about the cost of living and the NHS. Those are the two main things everybody cares about. Every single age group, Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem, whatever section of the voting public you're from, whatever political affiliation you have, what age group or housing tenure you belong to, all of us unilaterally mostly care about the NHS and the cost of living. And they can't see it. There are obviously some things here about small boat crossings and all of other kind of culture war stuff, but none of this negative stuff is about the economy, which is literally the issue. The issue for everybody is the fact the economy is the absolute sewer. And the reason why the Tories don't know this, the reason why the Tories don't get it, first of all, is because the culture war stuff, it's kind of ingrained in the Conservative psyche that the public care about this, but they can only be taught to care about it when their economic situation isn't dire. That's how they could kind of grift off this stuff a decade ago, but they can't do it now. It's difficult to get people whose material conditions are absolutely terrible to care about something other than the big direct effect on their lives. Like, material conditions are the most important part in kind of political messaging and in political allegiance. It's why the poorer you are, the more likely you are to be left-wing, is because that's what's in your material interest to do. Like, it's really simple, basic material analysis that's going on here. But the second thing is more ideological in nature. The second thing that's the issue is that the Tories genuinely believe they've done everything they can to deal with the economy. They genuinely believe that the tax cuts are putting more money in people's pockets. This is really good. We've increased the investment somewhat in the NHS. We have been fiscally responsible by not helping people out with their mortgages, otherwise that might stoke inflation, even though it's cost-push inflation and not demand-led, even though the Monetary Policy Committee have made wrong decisions on interest rate rises. We've been gifted poor economic situations and we're just doing the best that we can. And the problem is no matter what kind of shade of conservative policy that they want to put into power, that they want to put into action, none of them will solve this issue. And that's the 100% fundamental problem, is that the political ideology of conservative economics cannot comprehend how you solve these issues. They cannot comprehend what it's like for poor people who can't afford to live. They cannot comprehend what it's like for lower middle class people watching their assets be eaten up over time, having to remortgage or even move because they can't afford mortgage payments. They genuinely cannot personally internalize what these situations might be like. And on top of that, they can't conceive within their own monetarist framework of economic management that maybe tax cuts won't get them votes. The polls, Lord Ashcroft polls, show that people don't want tax cuts, they want public service investment. And they just continue with it because it doesn't even reach their brain as being something that computes as an economic strategy, because neoliberal groupthink is so ingrained in them. They must think less state good, less tax good, as if that's what everybody in the country believes. And it fundamentally isn't. It fundamentally is not what this country believes. We're much more left-wing than that on the economy very specifically.
Wing, and I loved it.
And the real solution to this economic crisis is Keynesian stimulus and its taxes on the rich. And they won't do either of them. Labour won't do any of them either. Like, we've had those things scrubbed out of potential Labour policy now anyway. But at least they're within what we would think would be the Labour wheelhouse of policies. But the Tories genuinely do not think that those things are good for the economy. They can't even conceive of a world where those particular policies might even work. And so they're looking at the issues that they're faced and gone, why do people hate us? We've done everything. It must be Rwanda. It must be the trans issue. It must be the extremists and the Palestine demonstrations. No, mate. It's because we want higher wages, we want an NHS that works, and we want our public services not to suck. And you just fundamentally
I'm literally a communist.
Disagree with all of those things. They fundamentally disagree with them all. And in fact, their economic philosophy is such that they cannot believe in those things and still believe in coherent political policy. And that's why the Tories will get destroyed at the next election. And they will continue to think that they have been hard done by. But it's just, this is what conservatism does. It's what neoliberalism does and what it always will do. So, yeah, enjoy, Tories. I hope you enjoy getting wiped out. It is well deserved, even if it's not deserved to be done by the current Labour Party. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.